Most of you are probably familiar with the famous Gemara in Masechta Gittin that tells us the tragic story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. All of you surely remember that there was a fellow that was making a party and he liked Kamsa and he didn't like Bar Kamsa. And by mistake, Bar Kamsa came to the party. Of course, the host was very, very upset. And he said to Bar Kamsa, listen, you got to get out. I don't want you here. And Bar Kamsa pleaded with him, please, I'll pay for my food. And of course, the host didn't want it. And Bar Kamsa offered to pay for everybody's food, to pay for the whole party. And the man said, you got to get out. And he embarrassed him and he threw him out. Now the Gemara tells us something frightening. There were great Talmidei Chachamim at that party, and they didn't say anything. And they really should have said something, because what happened as a result, Bar Kamsa was so angry that he went to the government officials and he got the Yidden in trouble, and that was the beginning of the Churban. That led to the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash. And you know something so interesting. You know how that Gemara starts? That Gemara starts by quoting a pasuk, and it's a pasuk in Mishlei, and it says like this: Ashrei Odom Mafachei Tamid. Fortunate is the person who is always concerned to see what could happen if he does something or doesn't do something. And Rashi says, Doyeg, he's concerned, Liroi Sanoila, to see what's going to happen with the consequences if somebody is not careful. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about a topic that is not easy to listen to, but it's such an important topic. And nobody likes to hear about end-of-life issues or illnesses when somebody is really very sick, an elderly parent or an elderly person. But the way, I guess, that we can speak about it so that it is palatable is to talk about the healthcare, to maintain the healthcare, to maintain that the will of the person who is ill is always followed, that the medical directives that those people would want to be in effect will indeed be followed. And then also about the transfer of funds or the transmittal of possessions that a person has to the next generations. Now, of course, all these things involve not only legal documents, but they involve getting a rov that will paskin for you properly and make sure that these directives that the Rov has laid out for the family, both in medical things and in Yerusha aspects, in inheritance, will be followed. Because you see, there's really a difference between the Torah view of life and the medical view of life. The Torah view of life is to try to maintain life as long as possible. In medical fields, in medical aspects, many times their idea is, look, if the person is not living a life that can be productive, if they're in tremendous pain and they can't really accomplish anything, there's no point in saving that life. That's not how we look at it. And so therefore there can be a contrast, there can be a conflict when somebody is very sick and there's no medical directive that the doctors have to follow. They're going to do what they want, not what the family wants. And so therefore you have to choose a certain lawyer. You have to choose a lawyer that's familiar with medical directives and is familiar with how Rabbonim give these psak halacha and how they can be manifested and written down in such a way, both halachically and legally, so that the doctors will be compelled to follow it. And one of the people that I know that is so wonderful in this field is an attorney named Mrs. Monet Binder. She is one who specializes in these fields. Now I want to tell you a very interesting Gemara, a Medrash actually. The Medrash tells us about Yaakov Avinu. The Medrash tells us in Bereshis Rabbah that Yaakov tova es hachayli. Yaakov asked Hashem, please make sure that before a person dies that they get sick. And he said, he said to the Rabbi Shalom, if a person dies without being ill, and as the Mefarshim explain, he's not able to command them and to resolve these issues of inheritance won't be resolved and they won't be determined properly the way the person would really want. So, in other words, what Yaakov was saying was, Hashem, please give people the opportunity that they should have the time and the wherewithal to be able to give over properly what they would want with their possessions and their finances. And again, many times this can be done legally, it has to be done halachically, but it has to be done that both the legal and the halachic mesh properly, and that the courts and the rabbanim will accept it. You could write a legal will, and then sometimes what's going to happen, someone of the people who are inheritors will say, hey, that's not halachically acceptable, and you have a problem. Or it could be halachically written, and then the courts are not going to accept it. So you need somebody like an attorney, like Mrs. Monet Binder, that can tell you exactly what is required, both halachically and both legally, and so therefore the medical directives in trying to maintain the person's life is done exactly, and the inheritance is also done properly. Now, for example, even the idea of qualifying for Medicaid. Not everybody qualifies for Medicaid. You need a lawyer who can tell you exactly how it's going to be able to be done. And again, also as far as inheritance, I'll give you an example. Many people have wonderful, wonderful daughters that they would want that they should inherit them as well. Now, we know lahalacha, what happens? Only sons yarshin. Only sons are the ones that inherit. And we know that the Torah tells us the whole story about Salafchad, that they wanted to have a Yerusha, and it was done in such a way so that they would be able to inherit. And therefore, that's why you need halachic guidance. There are many, many daughters that are so loyal to their parents when the parents are ill. And the parents don't want that they should be left out of the finances that they had or of some of the possessions that they had. And that's why it's important to make sure that you have a lawyer like Mrs. Monet Binder that will be able to guide you, to tell you what the Rav has to write and what the Rav has to do and what legally you have to do, so that all the things that the family wants, the will of the family, your will also always be able to be followed. I can't recommend her enough. She's a wonderful person, and to me, the most important thing about Mrs. Monet Binder is that she is very much in contact with the Beis Havad, the Halacha Center in Lakewood, which is run by Rabbi David Grossman. Every single document that she writes for a family is reviewed and approved by the Beis Havad in Lakewood before it is finalized. That's tremendous. So you have the halacha, you have the secular, and then you can be rest assured that everything that you want should happen will be able to be happening. The Eibishter should help that all of you should be able to go through these complex issues in life very smoothly, so that there should be no family machlekes, because we know that chas v'shalom, if it's not done properly, many families can be broken up because of this. Let's not let that happen. Let Mrs. Monet Binder guide you so that everything will be so smooth.